Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol custom character creation video. And today I'm very excited about this one because first of all, this is going to be closing out our Halo custom characters for the month of December. So really excited because we're getting to my favorite Halo character of all time, the Arbiter. And yeah, next month we're going to be moving on to a different theme, which you guys voted for. And currently, last I checked, at least the poll stands with Pokemon in the lead. So we're going to be doing some Pokemon characters for the month of January, and yeah, really excited to get into those. There should be a poll going up probably within the next week or so for what we're going to be doing in February, but that's a while away, so we'll worry about that then. For now, we're going to be taking a look at the Arbiter, and I'm really excited about this character, so yeah, as usual, we're going to go ahead and jump into a wiki dive. Alrighty, so here we have the Halopedia page for the Arbiter, and of course we are doing the Thel Vadam version. So Arbiter Thel Vadam is the Sangheili Kaidan of the House of Vadam, and the last Arbiter to serve the Covenant. He continues to hold this title in the wake of its dissolution. Presently, he leads the Swords of Sanghelios, an alliance of keeps modeled after an ancient city order of the same name, and is considered by many to be the formal leader of all Sangheili as the Kaidan of Unity. Thel commanded several fleets during his service in the Covenant, most notably the Fleet of Particular Justice, of which he was supreme commander. This fleet mounted a successful attack on the human colony of Reach under his command, and later fought the crew of the UNSC Pillar of Autumn on Installation 04, the first Halo ring to be discovered by both the Covenant and humanity. Vadam was responsible for over 1 billion human casualties over the course of the decades-long war against the humans and the glassing of at least 7 colonies. At the outbreak of the Great Schism, Thel became a leading figure among the Sangheili and aided the United Nations Space Command, or the UNSC, in its efforts to stop the High Prophet of Truth and his forces from activating the Halo Array. He and many Sangheili fought in multiple battles alongside the Spartan II super soldier John 117 on Installation 05, Earth, and Installation 00 in the final weeks of the war. We're not going to read the next part here because we're mostly focusing on the Halo 2 and Halo 3 version of the Arbiter here, probably specifically Halo 3. For the purposes of this video, if we return to Halo in the future, I might go and do a kind of Kaidan version of him, because I do think he looks kind of sick there. I know the armor's been slightly more controversial in the fan base, but I really like the armor he has in Halo 5. So yeah, but today we're going to be focusing on the Halo 2 and 3 version of him, and yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started with designing the character. Alrighty, so first things first, we're going to jump into stats. Now, with the... I guess I should probably go into edit mode here, that would help. With the Master Chief, we did kind of the front side for shields up and flip side for shields down. It was a really complicated mechanic that I think was a cool gimmick, and I'm glad that I did it for Master Chief, but I don't want to do it for every character that has energy shields because it's going to get a little repetitive and kind of boring. So we're not going to be doing that today. Today, we're just going to be kind of having him be more normal of a character. So with that said, going into his defenses, he typically does have an energy shield, so I think it kind of makes sense to kind of give him the same sort of deal that Halo energy shields tend to have, of their energy is a little bit weaker and their physical is a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and give him 4 physical and 3 energy. He'll be a little bit weaker to plasma weaponry. And as for Mystic, I think we can just leave him as a 3. He doesn't really have any particular expertise against Mystic, but he also doesn't really show any particular weakness, partially because there really isn't that much in the way of Mystic things in the Halo universe, but, you know, kind of still makes sense. Actually, you know what, thinking on that more, I may bump him up to a 4 on Mystic, and the reason for that is they talk a lot about how he's kind of this you know, strategic character. He's a planner, he's a tactician, he commanded fleets, and I think for that sort of thing, you know, a lot of the time the Mystic stat can kind of be seen as an intelligence stat, and I think it kind of makes sense to put him up to a 4 there. And I also think any real defensive tech we're going to give him is probably going to be on the 3 and 4. like the energy and physical here. So I don't want Mystic to be some huge glaring weakness for him because I don't really think that makes sense for the character. So I think we'll go with that for now. As for stamina, I think I kind of want to make him backloaded, probably like a 5-6 split or something like that. I'm also thinking about on the flip, kind of flipping his energy and physical, again, to kind of represent that shields down, but without the shield recharging mechanic that we gave Chief. I just think it kind of works. So I'm kind of thinking of a 5-6 split. If we end up going with a higher threat with him, maybe a 6-7 makes more sense. And actually, yeah, thinking more about what the character is, I'm thinking a 6-7 probably is what I want to go for. So we're going to do 6 stamina here. As for threat, we're not going to worry about that yet. Size, I think there's an argument that could be made to make him a size 3, like just elites in general are pretty big, but I think I'm going to reserve that for if we do brutes or anything like that now in the future, and leave him at size 2 for now, but he's definitely at the kind of upper end of size 2. And then for movement, we're just going to give him medium. He's not known for being, insanely fast or anything like that, but he's certainly not slow. So yeah, I think medium just kind of makes sense here. Alrighty, next up we are on to attacks, and I want to give him at least 2. I mean, that's kind of the default here. But the first one I'm kind of leaning towards is just giving him his Covenant Carbine that he has in the picture on the card. There's kind of a few arguments for what his most iconic weapon would be in terms of non-energy sword, because that's obviously his most iconic weapon. Personally, for me, it's the carbine. I started playing on Halo 3 as second player, which is part of why he's my favorite character. And the missions that me and my friend played all the time, he always loaded in with a carbine, or maybe I always found one early on, but for whatever reason, it's the weapon I most closely associate with him. Plasma rifle and a few other weapons would probably work pretty well here too, but I think the carbine works best for me. As far as ranges, I mean, it's a pretty long range weapon. I think 4 or 5 would make sense here. I'm going to go with 5. I think it's okay to be a range 5er here, and probably just a 5-dicer because it's a range 5, so it doesn't need to hit that hard. It's kind of impressive on its own. As for special rules, I think we're going to make it a builder because that just makes a lot of sense. From there, I'm not 100% sure. I kind of want to give it something else, but honestly, I don't really know what. Okay, so I decided to do a slight wiki dive on the carbine because I was kind of curious and wanted some inspiration on what to do here. And it's got some kind of interesting things here because it's a very unique Covenant weapon. Most of them are energy based, and this one shoots a projectile. It's not it's not a purely like energy battery weapon like most of the other carbine or Covenant weapons are. Most of them are plasma, as it says here. So there's a couple interesting things here. So it uses radioactive projectiles, and it actually talks about how after being struck with a round from the carbine, it's got deadly radioactive nature to it, and that could be really, really bad. So that's kind of cool. I think that works for either a poison or maybe even a bleed style effect on it, which I think would make a lot of sense. I'm going to lean towards poison because radiation and gamma radiation is typically what we see in MCP, is usually represented with poison. So I think that's just going to make sense. So I think I'm going to give it a poison. Maybe that'll be a trigger. Not 100% sure. But the other thing I thought was kind of interesting here is the kinetic energy impact of a round at close range can knock back an individual. So I thought that was kind of cool is... at close range, it has the ability to maybe knock them back, and then it's always got that ability to poison, kind of give it a little bit of versatility, which I think is definitely an interesting thing. So kind of jumping back over here, I'm thinking we give it something like a, wild poison, let's say, and then a range, maybe 2, maybe 3. I'm going to say range 3 knockback. And the reason why I don't want to do 2 there is because I'm probably going to be making his other attack the range 2. So I'm kind of liking this so far. I'm considering giving it a pierce as well. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that. Maybe a wild poison and pierce. Maybe. Not 100% sure how I feel about that. I think it's probably fine. We've already kind of established we're going for a slightly higher power level character when we were thinking about the hit points. So it only being a 5-dicer, I don't think it's going to hit too hard. So maybe we give it the Wild Pierce as well, and we kind of go from there and see how we're feeling about it. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and write this out a little bit more formally, and we'll jump back in. Alrighty, so I made a couple light tweaks from when we were discussing it there. First of all, I made the crit poison and the Wild Pierce, and I meant to do that in reverse, so I'm going to go ahead and change that real quick. Alrighty, there we go. So as I was saying, I made the Poison a Wild and the Pierce a critical. I figured that would make things slightly more interesting, and I think the idea behind the Pierce being a crit versus a Wild is the Pierce is kind of a, like, I'm treating it kind of like a headshot style thing. So, critical just kind of makes sense with that. And yeah, that just kind of worked for me. The other thing I did was because I made the push range or push automatic. It wasn't on a trigger or anything like that. I realized range 3 is probably really, really strong, so I decided to make it range 2. Could have just given it a trigger or something like that, and it probably would have been fine, but I think it would have needed to be like a double symbol trigger at range 3, because that just feels really, really good. Having a Pierce and a range 5 gun with an automatic push at range 3 just feels kind of rude. So yeah, I think range 2 is probably fine for that. It still actually feels pretty strong, so I'm pretty happy with that. Moving on from the Carbine, which I also want to rename to Covenant Carbine, so I'm going to go ahead and do that in a moment. But we're going to start working on his other attack here, which is, of course, going to be his Energy Sword. And I know technically he doesn't have it at the point of Halo 3 when it happens, but I'm going to call it Prophet's Bane anyways, because I think it's a sick name for an Energy Sword. So we're going to go ahead and do that. This is going to be a range 3 attack because, as we all know, with the Halo games, the energy swords really lunge you at the opponent, and if we're going Halo 2 here, you can even sword fly with them. So we're going to lean towards range 3. We're going to do the whole placing off of them thing, so hey, it's going to have a place. This is going to be the spender, so we're going to make it cost some amount of power, and I really got to think about how much I want this to be, because I want this to hit hard. I want this to be a, this is pure attrition. There's no control in this or anything like that. It doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, to have it be a control-y thing. So I'm thinking something like a 7 or 8 dicer, and then I'm going to give it a Wild Pierce on top of that, because that just kind of makes sense to me. So I think we go kind of that direction with it, and then from there, this feels solid. I feel like there's an argument to give it something else. It feels like it might be missing something, but honestly, I don't hate this if we just make it like maybe a 4-coster with a really good builder like his. I mean, it's not crazy for dice, but it's got the Pierce, it's got the push and everything like that. I think it's okay to make this something you're not using crazy, crazy often. Yeah, I like where this is kind of going, so I'm going to go ahead and write this out and see how I'm feeling about it. Alrighty, and there we have the Prophet's Bane attack. So this is a range 3, 8 dice, 4-cost attack. It's going to place you beside the target character, and it's going to have that Wild Pierce. And yeah, the more I think about this and some of the other things I kind of want to put on his kit, I'm pretty happy with this. So yeah, I think we're good to go on that one. And I think that's going to do it for attacks. I could totally give him like a plasma grenade or something like that as well if I wanted to, but I'm not really feeling like he needs it. I'm pretty happy with these. Going into superpowers, the first thing I'm kind of thinking about giving him is the Strategic Genius superpower, pretty much directly from Zemo. And the thoughts on this are pretty straightforward. He commanded fleets and stuff like that. He's a great tactician. He was responsible for so many human casualties during the Human Covenant War. And yeah, it just kind of makes sense to give him that sort of attack. So I think we're just going to give him, or not attack, but ability. So I think we're just going to give him Strategic Genius because that makes a lot of sense to me. Alrighty, so the next thing I want to give him is basically his active camo ability, and this one I want to do something a little bit more interesting with. I could just give him stealth and kind of call it there, because, I mean, that just kind of makes sense, right? And that wouldn't be a bad idea, but I think the active camo, especially for the Arbiter, is a little bit more interesting, because they make a whole point in Halo 2 of kind of saying, his armor is not as new as the other elites, and his active camo system doesn't last forever. He has to let it recharge. He has to put it back up whenever he needs it, but it only lasts for short periods of time. So I think a kind of cool way of handling that would be making it something he has to pay for in the power phase to get it for the round, but then it's just worse than stealth. So I want to kind of balance that out, and I want to make it better in some ways as well. Now, on a character with a range 5 and a range 3 attack, both of which, in my opinion, are pretty solid attacks, we want to be careful. We don't want to make this too crazy. So I'm leaning towards making it cost 2 power, so it's not something you can do super frequently. You won't be able to do it round 1 because you have to do it in the power phase, and if you are doing it, it's probably going to mean you're spendering a little bit less, so that should matter a little bit. But I'm thinking 2 power, and it's going to be stealth to range 2, because, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Criminal Syndicate Tactics card at that point, and that card isn't even, like, crazy widely run, so it can't be that broken, right? I'm not 100% sure. This might be too strong, but I think it'll be cool, and at the end of the day, that's what this series is all about. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alrighty, and there we have the active camo superpower. During the power phase, this character may use the superpower. If it does, until the end of the round, characters must be within range 2 to target this character with attacks, and it's going to cost you 2 power. So, yeah, I think that's going to be something where it's definitely worth it, being a character that attacks entirely outside of range 2. I mean, he places himself, I guess, with one of them, but still. Attacking entirely outside of range 2 means being basically invincible out while still being able to do all your things is pretty cool. And obviously, you know, you're not actually invincible. Characters can walk into you, or they can still throw stuff at you or whatever, but being untargetable is really, really good. So yeah, I think that's a pretty neat superpower, and you know, definitely kind of fitting for kind of a more stealthy Arbiter Halo 2 playthrough, which is, in my opinion, a really fun way to play him. So yeah, makes sense to me, and kind of fits the theme. Alrighty, so the next thing I want to give him, and I'm thinking this might actually end up being really, really strong with the active camo as well, is Martial Artist. And I don't know how I feel about that all of a sudden, because active camo here is so strong, and making them only able to attack him at range 2 plus Martial Artist just seems a little overkill, so I'm actually leaning maybe towards Martial Prowess, if that's the one I'm thinking of. Basically, the superpower where if they're within range 2, you get to roll 5 dice instead, so it's not like a flat increase, it's just always 5 dice. And if you don't take damage, you deal 2 back to them. So it's kind of got like a built-in Counter-Strike style mechanic. And I think that would be pretty cool and kind of make a lot of sense for Arbiter. So yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards that. I think it's more interesting. And the reason why that's not as OP as just giving a martial artist would be is A, the 1 or 2 extra dice isn't as strong as counting blanks in most cases, but also because you're going to have to pay power for it. So if you're paying for that, you're maybe not using active camo as much, and vice versa. So yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting kind of decision point there. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and give him that. Alrighty, and there we have what might be the last superpower on Arbiter's card here. I'm not 100% sure yet, but we have Kill Me or Release Me, what he says to the Gravemind in Halo 2. So when this character is targeted by an attack within range 2, it may use this superpower. Instead of rolling dice equal to its defense, it rolls 5 defense dice. Then, if this character suffered no damage from the attack, after the attack is resolved, the attacker will suffer 2 damage. It's going to cost you 2 power, the same as your active camo, so, you know, you don't want to be spending this crazy often if you can avoid it, because you want to be able to use that active camo and, of course, Prophet's Bane. So yeah, I think it'll make power management at least interesting for this character, and that's kind of all we're going for here. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Just kind of overall, I think that fits the character pretty well. Alrighty, so I've been looking at this card, and I want to give him something else, because I was kind of thinking about the threat I'm going to give this character, and he doesn't really feel like he quite fits anywhere. I don't think he quite has the damage output to be a 5 threat. I don't think I gave him enough health to be a 4 threat. Or, sorry, that's flipped. I don't think I gave him enough health to be a 5 threat. I feel like his some of the things he's doing, like the active camo and Kill Me or Release Me, feel like a 5 threat. And yeah, I'm kind of in a weird spot with him. I'm not 100% sure where I am with him. His damage output feels mostly fine, but definitely on the lower side if we go with 5. Whereas if we go with a 4, I feel like everything's slightly on the higher side, and I don't really know where to kind of land with that. So I want to give him something else to kind of just push him in that 5 threat direction, and maybe bump his health as well. We'll see. Although I think that's for the most part fine, because we did talk about how we were going to have the flip side be a 7 for his stamina as well. So 6-7 isn't bad for a 5 if that's the direction we're going. So I was looking through some other characters in the game for inspiration, and I had a kind of interesting idea that might be way too strong. I'm not 100% sure, and that is the Mantle of the Black Panther ability from Black Panther. And I think it's an interesting one for a character like the Arbiter here. Now, I think thematically it kind of works. But the kind of concern that I have with it is you're stacking rerolls, which is already really, really good. And with Black Panther, he's exclusively attacking at range 2. So it feels like it's probably way too strong to give a character with range 5 attacks that can, well, especially if he can give himself full rerolls, pretty much never be attacked outside of range 2 attacks. That feels way too strong, but that's kind of the direction I'm going. So I want to workshop that a little bit. I'm going to play around with it and maybe think of some other ideas, but I wanted to kind of turn back on the recording, explain my thought process so far, and kind of see where I can go from there. Okay, so I spent a little bit of time looking through some of the other versions of Black Panther to see if they had anything kind of jumping out at me, and unfortunately, I wasn't really seeing much else that I was really liking the look of, but Mantle of the Black Panther is definitely too strong. So I started looking again at some other characters, and I kind of liked the idea of that kind of Black Panther mantle-esque character, and I thought that kind of idea works really well for Arbiter. So I looked at a couple of the other Wakandan characters that kind of have a similar kind of role, and I thought maybe one of the Killmongers could inspire something, or M'Baku I looked at as well. And sure enough, Killmonger had something that I think is just enough to tip the scales on him a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a big enough difference that he's quite where I want him to be for a 5, but I think it kind of works for me. So that ability is the Special Forces ability that Killmonger has, and basically this says when he's attacking, he can pay a power to treat his shields as successes instead of his hits, which I think becomes really interesting when you have rerolls and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I think it's a cool superpower. Kind of fits the theme. He gets to kind of have that sort of versatility of, oh, well, this looks like a really bad attack roll, but hey, it's a really good defense roll, and now it's also a really good attack roll. So yeah, I think something like that's kind of cool, and might just kind of tip his damage output just high enough that I'm kind of leaning towards making him a 5, and then I think I go to 7/7, so he doesn't feel too squishy. I think that's fine. That's 14 health. That is a lot, but he has no like damage reduction or anything like that, so I think 7/7 is fine. Maybe it's still 6/7. I'll back and forth on that a little bit, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and write out that superpower. Alrighty, so for the last superpower on the card here, we have the Elite Zealot superpower. This is going to be a 1 cost when this character is attacking and may use this superpower during the calculate success step of the attack. This character may choose to count shield results instead of hit results as successes. And yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and duplicate that to the backside there, but I think that's just about going to do it for this character. I'm going to finalize this as a 6/7 split. I think I thought about doing the 7/7, but I think the 6/7 is fine. 13 is plenty, and his defensive tech is pretty solid. I mean, between Kill Me or Release Me, active camo, and then he also has the Commander of the Fleet of Particular Justice superpower here too. A reroll on top of basically martial prowess is pretty solid. So yeah, I think his defensives are totally fine. Offensively, I think he's pretty solid as well. He's got a reroll. He's got range 5 attacks. He's got this ability to use shield instead of hits. So again, that can kind of help with his just kind of averaging a better result. And yeah, I really like the way this character's kind of turned out. He's not what I really expected him to be when I first thought of doing the Arbiter, but the part of the reason why this ended up being the last character I did for Halo Month is because I was a little stuck with him. I wasn't entirely sure what to do for some of his superpowers, because as much as I like the character because of the character more so than specific feats that he's done. I don't really associate too many super cool like action sequences with him. So it was kind of a bit of a challenge for me to decide how to do this character in an interesting way, but I think we've at least created some cool things here. The carbine ended up being way more interesting than I wanted it, or than I'd originally thought it was going to be. Shouldn't say wanted it to be, because I actually think this is way cooler. But yeah, I was worried this was going to be a really boring attack, and I think we've made it fairly interesting, so I like that a lot. Prophet's Bane, I think, fits pretty well for the attack. And yeah, that feels like an energy sword to me. It's like a truck, has a pierce, places you on it so you can kind of lunge with it. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think we captured kind of the things he does in the games pretty well. Overall, I think this is actually probably one of the ones I'm happier with in this series, especially for the Halo month. Yeah, I was really conflicted during the actual creation of this character, but looking back at him now, I'm pretty happy with him. So we're gonna go ahead, bump that up to a 5, and am I gonna have to? No, I don't have to duplicate that. Cool, cool. So yeah, that's I think that's a good spot to put him. I think there's an argument you could nerf a couple things on here and probably make him a 4. I think if you take out something here, I don't think taking out Elite Zealot is enough, but I think if you take out something on the superpowers and maybe like drop a die on the spender, he could probably be a 4. Oh, and make him like a 6/6 or a 5/6. But personally, I think I like him better as a 5. I think it kind of fits, and I think I did Chief as a 5, so I either did Chief as a 5 or a 4. I don't actually remember, but I wanted them to kind of be equals, so that kind of made sense for me. Now it's bothering me. Did I do Chief as a 5 or a 4? I did Chief as a 5. Success. Okay. Just had to double check that, because yeah, that was a thing. But yeah, there we have the Arbiter. Pretty happy with how this guy's turned out. So yeah, definitely, as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think I did a decent job with this character? Do you think I represented him well, or the things you would have liked to see that aren't here? Definitely let me know how you guys are feeling on him. And of course, what you guys think balance-wise. Does he feel like he's too strong, too weak? Always curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Like I said, I had a really hard time with the kind of balancing on this one, so not surprised if thoughts are going to be all over the place on this. It usually is with this series. I'll get people telling me it's way too strong, and I'll get other people telling me it's way too weak, and I'm like, I don't know. But that's part of the fun of it, is kind of learning and hopefully improving as we go along. So yeah, that's going to do it for our Halo month. So I hope you guys have been enjoying it for the last month. Halo was not quite as popular as the DC theme, so we'll see now that we're doing polls and things to determine what themes we're going to be doing. We'll see if Halo ends up coming back in the future. I would love it too, because I do really, really enjoy just the Halo kind of franchise in general, and I already have tons of characters I want to do for Halo. But for now, we're going to be moving on. Next month, we're doing Pokemon, and we'll be throwing up a poll for the month following. So really, really excited to dive into some of the next themes we're going to be exploring. But that's going to do it for this one, and that's going to be the last character creation of the year, because obviously we are at the end of December here. This is going up on, well, this is being recorded on the 27th, because it is currently 2 a.m. But yeah, no, I'm really, really excited, looking forward to the next year for the channel. I hope everyone has had an amazing holiday, spending time with family and friends, and eating way too much food. At least that's what my holidays usually consist of. But hopefully everyone's had a good one, and I look forward to continuing this series and all of the others into the new year. So yeah, with that said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this character creation video. So once more, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do this series, of course, where we do a different theme every month. We also have a bunch of other Marvel Crisis Protocol discussion focused content throughout the weeks or weekdays, and we got battle reports on the weekends. So if you're a fan of any of that sort of thing, feel free to jump on in. But that's going to do it for now. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.